Chapter 75. The Righteous Man Shall Pass. Michael had managed his way back to that chopper in that alley, and luckily for him, without any more hiccups or hangovers. And also luckily, the chopper was still there. Good thing I pocketed the key really quickly when those cockskulls tried to jump me. Good thing. Michael was now riding along again, once again blazing forth through these neon, shining, streaming, shimmering streets, while still doing some spectator work of the menacing lot all around him, still trying to rock and riot the city to its foundation, still just doing what they think they're doing is righteous. And thinking that, Michael began to frown, for this was an issue he felt conflicted with now, and one he now knew he needed to address. Only the righteous man shall pass, and no one else. I believe in that. I do believe in that. For the way Michael saw it, without righteousness, how can anyone do what they do and get away with it? There's an order of things that you just can't break away from. Being aligned with grace of righteousness, if you want things to turn out better for you, it's how good guys always win. But to get that, you need to be in order. And to have that, you need to stick to the code. You need to make a pact, and with, well, the man upstairs. Him, really. And when you do, that's when you can do what you can do. Have the abilities that you have. Powers, almost. Magical powers, you can say. Granted to do what you do, because you've earned that pass. This here was a core belief in Michael. A foundation of how he saw how things were. Of what separated extraordinary men compared to the ordinary ones. Extraordinary men have abilities granted to them. Powers, you can say, almost, that allows them to do what they do. Grace of God type of stuff, basically. But the idea that was now bothering Michael about this whole age or age nonsense was, how is this all happening? How? Thought Michael, and then thought of Mr. Dorian, and how he is able to do so much with himself. How can someone be so wrong and capable of doing so much? How can he? Is he right? And now that horrifying thought dawned in Michael as he thought of him, and then took a look around and began to wonder about all this. Is this right? Is it? Is this what's needed to be done? Is this all this chaos righteous? Trying to set things straight But Michael didn't know. He didn't. All he knew was about himself and his intuitive and instinctive understanding about these things. From the feeling in his gut, such principles and how they worked, since he could only speak for himself. But then, thinking about himself and his sense of his own righteousness, that matter now really made Michael ponder on a fundamental level. How could I have attacked Nikki like that? Was I? No. Fuck no. Riding along, Michael now began contemplating over the choices he had made this night. Choices that had led to deadly consequences. For there was no hiding from the blood that had been spilled either directly by his hands or not. There had been that. Death had graced Michael's path several times, even though it hadn't yet taken him. It had made its presence felt still, since Michael had practically been calling out to it, calling forth for the old cloak and bones to show up. Michael was now contemplating over his choices, as he wondered about his own sense of righteousness and how things had led up to this. I know I haven't been righteous all the time in all matters. I know that, especially when it comes to women, but when I felt it, I know I've done right. This night, it felt like, for me, to come all this way from the halfway house shithole where it all started, to confronting Madboy at 1999 building. I felt that I did. But if I did, how could I have made so many mistakes tonight, as I have, when I did what I felt was that, thought Michael. It's how I've mostly survived. I've tried to mostly be righteous, and it's paid off, and it's also how I've never lost a fight ever. If there was ever a core belief in Michael when it came to his rowdy ways, It was this belief of his of the righteous man. I've been in more fights than I can remember. Hell, I practically learned how to communicate with my fists before anything. First words being pow and wham. And considering that, my upbringing, I feel like I've truly come to understand the nature of what it takes to be that righteous man, that extraordinary somebody, to be that one that stands out. I feel like I've come to truly understand the nature of what it means to be a fighter, better than most of the lot on the streets looking to be a number one can do. That's how I've never lost a fight ever. Most of the lot think there's this special skill that's needed, a special talent or gift, but it doesn't. The only thing that sets the ordinary from the extraordinary is righteousness and nothing else. Righteousness. It's that gut feeling you feel deep down that I feel is what holds all omnipotent sway of everything, of what goes. That deep down sense that might be a man's only true sense of his true self, trying to communicate to him what needs to happen. Assessing a situation and telling a man what's what. Like me? No. You're an unrelenting, pestering jackass that has to have something to say about everything. But that's what someone's conscience does. It's supposed to, I don't give a shit. Can I go on now? Thank you. You see, back in the day, back when men were men and you wouldn't understand the reasons for any conflict beyond one's own self-interest, back then there was this system in place honorable men lived and died by. Sort of like a judicial system, except unlike the one we have now where you find a court full of lawyers paid off by the respected parties to spin lies and untruths to resolve matters. You had two men wielding their fists or swords and allowing violence to do the job. Violence, which is and always will be the ultimate means to resolve anything. But unlike today, men back then understood something about violence that my pitiful generation knows nothing about. And most men have all but forgotten. You see, justice isn't blind, it can see. What it is two men staring into each other's eyes to seek out just cause, seek out purpose, truth, seek out meaning, measuring out each other's own true worth, by trying to find out who stands as the bigger man, the better man, the righteous man. And the name of this glorious pastime that we used to have back then was called dueling. That there was it. That all there was to truth of it. What Michael saw as what separated the righteous and gave them the pass to do what they did. Now, I'll admit, there's a lot about those old ways I really wouldn't stand by, me personally, neither today. That system that was in place back in the day also had its ugly side of there being no compassion for the reasons behind their actions, to find just cause. What you ended up having is two men building up way too much animosity for each other, which led to killing being the only means to resolve their conflict, trying to prove how righteous they were by trying to stare into each other's eyes, but more into the face of death instead, to prove just cause. Personally, I see that's going too far. In the end, it shouldn't have been about taking it up with the Reaper. It was about taking it up with the man standing next to you, and that alone should have been enough. For in the end, it's all about trying to find common ground where both men can stand by, not just one taking up the other's place. But anyways, that I believe is the truth of it. Justice isn't blind, it can see, but only through true confrontation of having two men cast down their fictitious selves and confront one another fully. Only then can it be obtained. Words can never play a part in all this because words are too soft and can never go deep into the core of a matter. Only violence can, by punching a man in the face to see what his first reaction would be, shattering his facade like glass to see what's underneath. The reason Michael had never lost a fight ever was because he always knew when to choose them. I know when I see a bigger and better man, and I know when I see a bunch of arrogant assholes and pompous pricks that are just begging for me to beat the ever-loving motherfucking shit out of them. and have them put in their place. And the reason why I've never really had that happen to me is because I've never once taken on the bigger and better man. One more righteous than me. That gut feeling in me has always shown me my place and shown me who it would be right to take on, who it would be wrong. First time I ever noticed about this whole thing about righteousness and that gut feeling that holds power over everything that goes was when I was a kid, 12 to be exact. Funny how much can be learned at such a young age. Michael now started thinking of that Billy kid and began entertaining that whole notion again. Was he really? But then dropped it. It was pointless now to do so. Although, when I was 12, I really was just a dumb kid, nowhere near as smart as Billy there, and also very uncommunicative. And now Michael realized it really couldn't have been him. Stupid Twilight Zone shit, that was. But anyways, when I was his age, I really was dumb and had yet to understand about that whole thing, about righteousness, understanding about how there really was such a greater scheme to things and how it pertained to me and everyone around me. But then something happened, something commonplace for a boy my age then that gave me that understanding, that set me straight and has kept me in the path of righteousness since. What had happened was, Michael was with Rude Boy. Wait, Rudy. I remember him now. But 12, around the mid to late 60s, and what they were doing were picking on some kid that was in front of them. The three of them having just gotten out of elementary school on the street, and Mike was tagging along Rude Boy, as Rude Boy began picking on the kid that was some frail-looking kid, some girly-looking boy with hair all blonde and long and done up in a way that made it confusing for anyone to guess what the kid's gender really was just by looking at him. His name was Daniel. Don't remember his last. He was some really wimpy-looking weakling that always looked like he was asking for it to get picked on, of course, as he did. A sickly-looking kid, always looking like he had a cold, as if it was cold outside, even during the summer months. All pale and pitiful-looking, blowing bubbles from his always running nose. It was me and Rudy and this shrimp, and Rudy was tagging along behind him, bagging on the kid and spitting. He was actually spitting on him. And seeing this, Michael had then joined along. Wait, I did? Didn't I? Both spitting now and talking trash about the poor kid's mother, who was a streetwalker that had been recently pulled into the streets by her hair by some John and... shit, thought Michael, now shocked by it all, by his and Rudy's actions. Everyone in the neighborhood had heard about what had happened, and of course, so had we. We were both then spitting and saying a whole bunch of nasty stuff. Rudy had started it, and I had then joined along. Why did I? How could I have become that despicable too? But then Michael figured it had to have been Rudy and his influence. Michael had first witnessed Rudy, seen what he was doing, and had then fallen into the same mindset as him. And since Rudy was always one seriously shameless little shit, this is what had come from it. Fucking Rude Boy. Now I remember his ass, that motherfucker. Now I do. I did nothing but questionable shit with that fool, as we all did, the rest of us Shamrocks. And he was always the one that led in that direction. Something about his nature just brought out the worst in all of us. Truly the despicable worst. Which I guess later on made us all feel shitty and wanted to forget all that we had partaken in. And in this case, being a real pair of wretched little shits, punk kids, doing what we did because we thought it was funny. Someone's mother getting pulled into the street and beaten, made an example of, and we did nothing but turn it on Danny and made it into a horrible joke. But what had then happened, I guess it eventually got to that Danny deeply. And after a while of him listening to us calling his mother a sucking Susie, and then Rude Boy trying to react to the whole thing, all the hollering and screaming that went on when the John pulled the woman into the streets to call her a thieving whore for having taken more money out of his wallet when he wasn't looking. After Rude Boy was done with all that, it was then the little twerp turned around and gained the strength to do what he did. I remember Rudy got quiet all of a sudden and then got scared as I did. And then that Danny kid socked Rude Boy straight in the mouth. Really knocked him the fuck out, popping one of his teeth. And at that moment, that kid had then looked at Michael straight in his eyes, and what Michael had then felt was the frameworks of everything he would later on develop within himself. Understanding what separated all that was wrong from all that was right. I didn't get what I was doing. I just did it because Rude Boy was doing it. And it looked like lots of fun. At the time, I simply just didn't get how horrible what I was doing was. But once I did, once I saw into that kid's eyes, it was only then I understood it. In all its details, completely. It was then in the pits of my stomach I felt the wrong, and I felt how horrible it was to be doing all this. What Rude Boy made me do. And at that age, at 12, with that dweeby little kid, and seeing into his eyes and into his world, and into his pain, I was taught about everything that came to the line. His eyes taught me everything about me and him and about it all, then, and where I stood when it came to my actions. That dweeby kid had then popped Michael in the nose and broken it bloody the second time for Michael at that age. And Michael had allowed it to happen, allowed the kid to do that to him, since Michael felt no call to confront him about it, because he then understood how he stood in the wrong and how he deserved the punishment. That kid's mother was in the hospital for almost a week with what that John had done to her over some money. She tried to rob him, but since the John was an Italian mob guy, old tough guy, not gonna take any scheming from some low-life dame, he then tried to embarrass her in that way. But what he did was go way too far. And I saw the pain in that kid's eyes when it came to what he felt for his mother and the woes of it all. I felt it in the pits of my stomach, which did not allow me to act even though that kid attacked me first. And at that age, considering how much of a crazy, uncommunicative little shit I was too, the experience had to have had that much of an effect on me not to have. Because any other case would have been different. At that age, I was a fair little mongrel, no doubt about it. The basic idea for Michael was, in every man, all those inches that add up to a fight, one man waging out against another, could be measured in the depths of one's own conscience. If one felt guilt and shame, the inches wouldn't add up, and that person would lose the fight. That's what really brought the outcome of any fight. Anything, really. If I had attacked that kid anyways, I would have lost, no matter how small, scrawny that kid was. It had to do with his mother, so whatever strength he would have then harnessed to go to war with me with would have done me in. That's the truth of it. That's how it works. That's how it works. As long as you feel that strongly in your gut, you are righteous. But now, something occurred to Michael. As long as you feel that strongly that you're right, what if one acted upon what one thought was right but wasn't? It was all in the wrong and based his actions upon lies. No, that's not possible. And then all of a sudden, it happened. Shit. The fool's justice. Michael awoke. Fuck. Michael finally awoke. Oh, shut the fuck up, you. Michael started to understand that just like how he was once ignorant about the wrong he did to that kid, that Danny kid, having tagged along doing some truly, truly, truly despicable shit of bagging and spitting, just how he was ignorant about all that with his actions, how even now, him in his 30s, he could still be that way about other matters. Fucking bullshit. This is some true fucking bull. It was now, truly now, at this moment, Michael was finally awakening. Oh, enough with you. If you knew about this shit before, why didn't you tell me all this? Why wait this long to tell me? I mean, you're supposed to be my conscience and shit. Why? Because you wouldn't have understood it then. But you're like my conscience, Gabe. Wait, did you just call me Gabe? Yeah, I did. Every time I hear your pestering ass narration, I hear his voice. Especially when you're making me out to be such a dumbass. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not Gabe. I'm just a voice in your head. And so, therefore, you're only seeing yourself as that, being a dumbass. But still, if you knew about it before, how wrong I've been to think a certain way, why didn't you? How could I have explained it to you before if I am your own thoughts and you have yet to come to this conclusion? Anyways, mind if I continue? Fine, do whatever you want. Thank you, Gabe. Anyways, ahem. It was only now that Michael was finally getting the true sense of it, as this revelation began tearing down the fabric of all he understood about the right and wrong he had done, began tearing down that foundation, brick by brick, until there was nothing left but an empty lot, ready to be rebuilt as something else. But if I haven't been righteous, what have I been all this time? You want to know, Michael? Do you really want to know? Do you? I'm sort of afraid to know now. But fine, go ahead. You've been self-righteous, Michael. Alright? What does that mean? It means you haven't been righteous at all. It means you've, in a biblical sense, committed the worst possible sin that's ever been committed by man in the eyes of God. Taking the idea of right and wrong and twisting them around to suit you and how you see how things should be, how they should measure up. Come up with stuff you think should matter based on your own selfish understanding of it. Right and wrong, revolving around you and no one else. You said it's a sin? Yeah, it is, Michael, it is. The worst possible one yet, mind you. Just how bad are we talking about here? Well, you know Nazis, right? Oh, yeah, Michael, that bad, Nazi bad. And the thought of that really began to shake Michael to his foundation. Wait, once again, if you're my thoughts, how do you know about all this biblical stuff? You know how I feel about religion. Michael, you've read the Bible 3 times over in prison. That and you've read into other religions. You've read the Quran about Hinduism and Buddhism and Greek and Norse and Polynesian myths. You've read so much and contain so much knowledge about the matter, you practically certified a PhD in all this theological stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot.